Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and today we're going to talk the Erdnase Bottom Deal. This channel is devoted to accessible methods and approaches to magic for kind of the everyday hobbyist. And it wouldn't seem that a technique like bottom dealing is something that is for that kind of person. It generally isn't, but it is a skill that's worthwhile to learn, I think. It's even therapeutic. Now, I know I've posted some videos recently online here that have some of my bottom dealing in it. Bottom dealing is not new to me, in spite of what some of you may think. I've been doing it for many, many years, and I really only do one way. I only do the Erdnase bottom deal, which that's what we're gonna focus on today. There are other methods to bottom dealing that are more deceptive, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, really what that means and what it doesn't mean. But it's the first one I learned. I have no great use for learning a great number of bottom deals and seconds and various kinds of techniques. I really sufficiently only need to know one if I ever need to use it, which is not very often, right? I don't do gambling demonstrations. It's not what I do. There are some people that focus on gambling demonstrations in their magic. That's a bulk of their repertoire. And for those people, obviously, they're going to want to look for techniques that look really, really clean and clear for that reason, right? So somebody who is demonstrating second deals, they're going to do a very tiny brief that's almost imperceptible. And that's the point, right? People can not see what's happening even though they're looking right at it. Realistically, though, you would never do that in card cheating. If you listen closely to some of the great card performers, some of the great card cheating experts and magicians, people that do demo routines, they will all say that what they do for their demonstrations is not at all what a person would do in a real environment. That in the real environment, they would go for the surefire way, the quick and efficient method to accomplish the task of cheating. So that should be kept in mind. So when you're looking at what I'm doing, you're not looking at gambling demonstrations. You're looking at things knowing that they're there, right? You know that I'm doing it, and it's just really a demonstration of the thing with you knowing that it's there. It's not to deceive. In a previous video, we talked about when to do certain methods and certain tricks and when not to. The concept of performing for the lay audience versus performing for magicians. You would never do, bottom dealing, not usually, performing for magicians. It's a lot like false shuffles. If magicians know about it, they can see it. And really, almost any bottom deal has tells. Okay, any one of these sleights, any one of these card cheat maneuvers has some kind of tell to it that if the looker knows what it is, they will see it. All right. So let's talk about this now. Erdnase is I'm not going to really teach it. You can get the book for free. You can download this online. You don't have to go buy a copy of it. It is a public domain book. It's very, very old, and you can get this just as a digital copy somewhere, a scanned copy, or other digital versions that they have. Or buy a copy. I mean, it's quite inexpensive. Just get on Amazon or a store like that and purchase a paperback version of it. Some people collect many, many different editions and types of this book as a kind of a collector's sort of, I don't know, hobby, right? To have as many of these as possible. But we're going to look at this, and I'm just going to talk about really the more controversial parts of it and why they don't really matter. Okay, they really don't matter. And some of you will agree with this and some of you just won't. Some of you will point to other people far greater than I am and say that they think differently. Some people will find someone else and say they think the same. I don't care. I really don't. I'm just going to show you what the book says and and kind of talk real common sense about it. Okay, so first of all, the deal itself, just to kind of demonstrate it, is it's complex compared to some other bottom deals. It has a lot of stuff going on. The way it is done is you would have your cards. We'll put the 4 aces on the bottom. I'm going to do this with half the deck because it is easier, and I want to be surefire on this as I'm demonstrating some things. And we'll look at some whole deck stuff here before we're done. But take a look here. As I'm dealing, what's going to happen is I'm holding the deck between two corners. This is very common to bottom deals, is that you want to kind of suspend the deck between the front corner and the back corner kind of in the palm, as far forward as possible, according to the book. And then if for the Erdnase bottom deal, you're going to use the middle finger. Oftentimes for bottom deals, you would be using a first finger. Now, there are a number of different grips that have names that use that kind of a grip. But for Erdnase, it's the middle finger. And I have adopted this for all of my dealing. When I'm dealing fair, I just hold it in the Erdnase grip, is often what this is called. You'll see that there's a vast ocean of space underneath the deck, right? That's the idea, is that it's suspended up just between these 2 points. And it's really just the cards that are nearest the bottom. The deck really can float on that. And it's not even really that you're holding the bottom of the cards. You're kind of pushing it against the side of it so that you could potentially dislodge cards from underneath, which is very, very important, of course, for the bottom deal. You can't bottom deal if you can't do that. So the way this works is that your thumb, at the moment of dealing a bottom, would push out a top card as if to take it. And then the fingers, the ring finger and the pinky, mostly the ring finger, is going to, some people will buckle back, that's what I do, to kind of dislodge, and then push forward on the card so that the taking hand can reach in and grab. I usually use my middle finger to do this. You can use a middle finger, even your ring finger, if you really want to put a lot of coverage on it. You could potentially grab it with the first finger if you want to be open, but I tend to kind of go in the middle, use my ring finger. You can grab it underneath, make contact with the card underneath between the middle finger and the ring finger, and then you can take it out. Now, in order to take it out, of course, these fingers have to lay flat and give clearance for the card to be taken, and then they just kind of pop back up into place as the top card goes back into place. That's the motion. Now, part of this motion comes kind of at the end point. I'm a music teacher. When we think about beats, we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4/4 time, right? Common time, 4 beats per measure. And then we have the in-between, which we call the and beat, right? That's a very common American way of counting rhythms, 1 and 2 and. This happens at the and beat, is when the dislodging occurs between the previous fair deal and then the moment of the bottom, okay? So if I'm dealing fair, 1, 2, 3, at the and is when I would pull back and buckle to dislodge and then start to push forward so that when I get to the next beat, the next deal, which is going to be the bottom, then it's in place. Okay, so there's some of this happens slightly ahead, and that's the rhythm that you have to work out as you're practicing your any kind of bottom deal. There's going to be some kind of preparatory action and a rhythm that has to be worked out, even if it's a very small prep. So that is the general way that the deal works. It's held suspended between the middle finger, the palm. The ring finger is responsible for dislodging the card and pushing it forward. Again, I buckle first to kind of pull it away from that middle finger. That's a very common strategy that you'll hear people talk about. And then I push forward with the ring finger and then take it out. And it goes from there. So dealing, just to show you what it looks like here in action. So I've got the 4 aces on the bottom. And if I just deal 4 hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be the 4 aces there, okay? And let's talk about the reality of that, right? So the very first one, you see I didn't get a grip on it. That's reality. If you ever deal in a card game, right? You're playing a card game, just a home game, fun game with, chips or whatever, which my family gets together annually, and we do that when we go to the beach. We get out the poker chips and we play Texas Hold'em, and that's just what we do every evening. So there's about 5 or 6 of us that do that. And you'll notice that when people deal fairly, they miss sometimes, right? Or they drop something. When that happens with a bottom or a second, it doesn't have to be a big deal. No pun intended, right? It doesn't have to be a big deal. What you don't want to get caught with is something hanging out where it's not supposed to be, right? I don't want to have a situation where I'm dealing out and then I miss, and I've got cards hanging out in places they're not supposed to be, and it's obvious, right? Or if it comes partway out and gets stuck there. That's really the big no-no. Let's talk briefly here about what things really don't matter with respect to the mechanics of the deal. So as I said at the very beginning, there are tells, okay? It's not merely if you make a mistake and if something hangs up or if you don't get a grip. That's not really the bulk of the concern for most people. Most people, when they're learning any kind of sleight, but particularly this type of bottom deal, they're very much worried about the tells. There's this thing, I call it the figure 23, figure 24 problem. Okay, I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. But it's this ring finger popping out, going down, right, or moving, and fingers, kind of flaring out a little bit as there's a change in the hand when that happens. And people really get frustrated about that. Let me just show you what the book says about it. So I'll show you what I mean by the figure 23, figure 24 problem. In the pictures, you can see here, figure 23, it shows that image that I showed you, right? This is the action. The ring finger comes down. You can see the knuckle sticking out underneath. This is what you are supposed to be doing. This is how the deal works, right? And then if you go over to figure 24, you can see that the fingers have to flatten and flare out in order to take the card. So there's a pretty drastic change between this moment and this moment here. The hand changes. It does. There's no way around that. The author talks about trying to cover some of that up. It says here, Hoyle makes a point of instructing that a dealer should always keep the outer end of the deck and the cards as dealt inclined toward the table, sort of showing the face side of this. And you can see when you do that, it puts the hand underneath. But you'll notice that it doesn't provide perfect cover. I'll also note that there's people all around in a card game, and this is for card cheating, right? And you shouldn't cheat at cards. I don't really believe in playing cards for money anyway. Like I wouldn't be caught dead doing that. I don't believe in I just don't believe in gambling in general. I stay far away from that. We play for fun, and I often do a lot of this stuff in the fun games. I don't cheat. I don't typically, do something for an advantage, but I will do the moves because I can. It doesn't really affect the game in any way with a shuffle deck and whatnot. It's just to see, just to put it into practice and get that little bit of a, heartbeat pitter-patter kind of thing when you go to do the move and see if you can get away with it. And I always get away with it. They know I do card stuff. Nobody ever notices anything. Nobody sees it. It doesn't matter. It flies right by, even with all these tells. But he says, Hoyle makes a point of instructing that dealers should always keep the outer end of the deck and the cards is dealt inclined toward the table, showing the top. This is because it's fair, I suppose, right? So you can see everything clearly. Now, he makes a point that this should, following this rule tends to hide the work of the third finger in bottom dealing. Tends to, right? When you're at a game, as I was saying, and you have a bunch of people playing, 5, 6 people, you're sitting, someone's sitting right near you, right? There's people sitting all around. There are no good angles. You know, you might have one good angle here, but it's a surrounded situation. The truth of the matter is nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It could be this way, right? And they can see fingers moving. It just isn't a thought that anybody has that anyone could easily do such a thing as deal from the bottom. Likewise, people say, well, if you were doing that with real card players, why in the world would you be cheating with real card players? That's kind of a silly thing to say, right? You wouldn't cheat, just hypothetically. I'm not a card cheater, so, like I know what I'm talking about. But why would you cheat with people that know cheating? You would avoid those people, right? Realistically, criminals are low-life scumbags who take advantage of vulnerable people, not people that are in the know. Okay? A card cheater is a low-life scumbag that takes advantage of people that are ignorant. They don't go for people that are aware and that know. That would be foolish. You just wouldn't do that, okay? In spite of kind of the Hollywood glamour of it. So when it comes to tells, this action, I mean, you can try to roll it under and hide it, but ultimately it doesn't matter if it's seen. It just doesn't, and you can't get rid of it. It's essential. It's essential for the move. You have to do it, right? You cannot do this bottom deal without those tells. They just exist. They're there. The only thing wrong with the Erdnase anything that's found in this book, is that it's old and everybody knows it, right? Magicians know it. That's what's wrong with it. Magicians know about it. It's not something that you can use realistically to fool magicians or, to use in a gambling demonstration among magicians. Now, I will say this. If you ever follow some of your favorite card magicians that do this kind of stuff, you will note that they have kind of two sets of repertoire. And I've noticed this with a number of people, almost all of them, that they will demonstrate for magicians certain things. This gets back to that last video. But when they get into their act, a Magic Castle act, right, which is for lay spectators mostly. It's the people that are invited to come, to put the money into the ticket and buy a dinner and whatever. Those are lay spectators. When you look at their acts, you'll see that they resort to kind of the standard stuff. The surefire, this won't mess up, this will work out, I've stacked my deck for my routine, I'm going to use my zero shuffle that works well, right? Even though it has clear tells for any magician that's looking at it. That's what they gravitate towards because they're not stupid, right? They're going to do that stuff. So there's a little bit of a false glamour, I think, in some of these really imperceptible moves. They exist, and people certainly learn to do them well. They have a time and place, is what I'm saying. So for me, I never have that time and place. It just doesn't exist. It's not something I strive for. It's not really of use to me. Now, you might, as a hobbyist, therapeutically be looking into learning that kind of stuff and doing presentations and videos or whatever. And that's wonderful. There's everything right with that, right? Is trying to find new and interesting ways to fool people and try to learn the very best versions of things that can't be seen. But it's just not where I'm at. I'm expert at the card table bottom deal. That's what I do. So anyway, a little bit on the bottom deal. Let's talk about a couple other things that are mentioned in there. There is one mention about concerning tells. Someone said there's a lot of fidgeting when I do it. The book talks about when you're dealing with a whole deck, of course, it's harder. And generally, when you're doing a bottom deal, especially this one, the cards will start to gravitate towards the the heel of the wrist. It's going to come back this way to the joint. And it says that this is dealt with on the fair dealing moments where you can shift the deck forward. So that is just a motion that is normal to correcting the balance of the deck that's even talked about in the book. So as someone might be dealing through, you can see how things hang up when you have a full deck. As they're dealing through, you'll see every now and then this shift, right, where you kind of pick it up and set it back down in the hand as you're dealing fairly. That is normal, and it's no different than somebody holding the deck and quite casually just dealing fair, right? They don't necessarily do everything smooth and fluid all the time. They might take the deck and re-square it up or whatever. You know, that's natural, that's normal. All of the things that are tells for the bottom deal look just like normal tendencies. They don't really look out of line to the regular spectator and onlooker. So it goes with magic. You know, that is so closely related to, I think, the paranoia that magicians deal with. They don't see it. You know about it, but they don't see it. They just don't see it. It doesn't even occur to them that there is a tell for something that they don't even know about, right? There is a famous talk that was given at the White House some years ago by a Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, has talked about the known knowns and the unknown knowns and the known unknowns and whatever, right? And he's making the point that there is such a thing as the unknown unknown. There are the things you know, the things you know that you know. There are things that you know that you don't know. You know that there's something that exists, but you don't know anything about it, and you need to learn it. You need to gather intelligence. But then there's something called the unknown unknown, and that is the thing you don't know that you don't know. And to the lay spectator, which again is 99.9% of people that you perform for, everything is an unknown unknown. They don't know what they don't know. They just don't. Okay, you could do everything out of this ancient book, this very old book, exactly as it's printed in here, and nobody's going to spot any of it. They just won't. They don't know. They don't know that they don't know. Okay, so as we're demonstrating things here in the common magician perspective, that's what I have to give to you. Everything is an unknown unknown. Don't get too frustrated as you're working on these things. If you're doing it as it's supposed to be done and you can do it fluidly, that's good. That's where you want to be. If you want to do it even more imperceptibly, find another way. That's what you need to do. You need to kind of experiment with a different method entirely that covers up those tells. But be aware that with anything new that you do, there are new tells. Okay, there's always something new that can be seen. One last thing on that topic of unknown unknowns. There's the card magician that I won't mention the name. Came up with a look at a zero shuffle that's become quite popular and has made a number of different video series on it. And I don't mention it because I don't want to ruin the marketing of that idea, and I don't want to expose anything. But they were talking about he was talking about how everybody did a zero shuffle. Everybody does it this way with these issues. So he said he wanted to find a way that didn't have any of those issues. It just took a different strategy, went a different route. And that's what he did. What he came up with was something that for a while nobody recognized, and it worked really well. But here's the thing. Once you learn the method, you can't unsee it. Okay? It has its own tells. So it goes with any kind of move. There's going to be certain tells that you're going to find with any move. Once it is known to people, it is no longer an unknown unknown. It's a known. Okay, so there's nothing out there that can be learned that can't be seen by someone who knows that it's there, for the most part. There are a few exceptions to that. So I leave you with that. Good luck with this, and happy magicking.